It was not long ago that I talked about the immense success of Black Myth Wukong, a highly anticipated game, one that has broken all kinds of records. I talked about its all-time peak concurrent player number of 2,415,714 players, which is just insane for a single-player game, a non-live service title. I mean, that is such good results that Black Myth Wukong is right now number 2 as far as all-time peak concurrent players records of all time on Steam, being out Palworld, Counter-Strike, Lost Ark, Dota, Cyberpunk, Elden Ring, you name it, some juggernauts that Black Myth Wukong, a new IP at that, just kind of overtook with just very little time after launch. General sentiments from players has been overall positive, quite positive in fact. The review score on Steam is still sitting at overwhelmingly positive with almost 400,000 reviews. 96% of folks who played this game rated positive, gave it a thumbs up, and sales for this game within 3 days reached 10 million copies worldwide. I mean, any AAA developer would be ecstatic at these results. Any AAA publisher would absolutely love to experience results like these. $600 million roughly in revenue for this game. So this game's definitely already made its money back and then some. Now, I've talked before about how the majority of these sales definitely do come from China. This can be seen if you look at the reviews here and how the majority of the reviews, if you look at languages, are not in English. So a lot of Chinese players went out of their way to leave a review. And this ratio kind of indicates that most players who bought this game were from China. But that's not to say that it did paltry numbers, outside of China. Based on statistics and analytics and data, there's an estimate that roughly 80% of total sales were from China. But outside of China, when you consider 10 million in sales, that still means that about 2 million copies were sold globally outside of China. And within China, we're roughly looking at 8 million copies. Not surprising at all, given that it's Journey to the West, given it's frickin' the Monkey King, basically the most iconic mythological figure in China. So, of course, this is going to draw a lot of attention. And so, yeah, a lot of positivity generally surrounding how the game is performing. Now, another entity who is extremely happy about these results is Sony. Keep in mind that this game launched on PC, but also on PlayStation 5 with no Xbox release in sight yet. They are working on it, but there are technical elements that they have to kind of go through and hurdles that they have to kind of overcome in order for that game to come out on Xbox. But Sony's been enjoying some of the after effects, the positive after effects of Black Myth Wukong doing so well in China. So right here, Daniel Ahmad posted, Wukong turned profitable on its first day and earned more than $450 million in gross revenue over its first 3 days, according to Nico Partners analyst Daniel Ahmad. So he's quoting himself here. Sony Group Corp ran a sales promotion for its PlayStation 5 in China for the week around Wukong's launch and saw stores sell out of the console. That's right. Black Myth Wukong performed so well in China that they're selling out of PlayStation 5s almost like it's basically launch day. It's kind of insane. There's another individual going by Daniel Camillo, who is sort of a publishing and gaming consultant in China, who also corroborated this, saying that big surge in PS5 sales in China due to the launch of Black Myth Wukong. We're witnessing a contagious wave of consumers who don't usually care about gaming suddenly being overwhelmed with all the exposure the game is having in China and buying new consoles. With the game not launching on Xbox, PlayStation kind of got a big boost, and their market share in China just kind of grew. And this is kind of how you tap into regions where your console typically doesn't sell very well. You make a game that particular country or that particular region just cannot resist because of what it has to offer and the appeal that it has for the people and the denizens of that particular region. And then beyond that, Daniel Camillo posted another tweet further kind of elaborating on the situation, saying that PS5 stock is selling out in China and talking about how it is now clear that sales are extraordinarily high, driven by Wukong. And I mean, this is getting so out of hand when it comes to the sales of PlayStation consoles that we are seeing scalping and reselling of the console. Scalpers have gotten wind of the fact that PS5s are going out of stock. People want to get these consoles just to play Black Myth Wukong because of the word of mouth that's spreading about their iconic mythological entity kind of receiving this AAA treatment that is garnering a lot of praise from players. And so it is a whole situation. I mean, for Sony, this is fantastic news. And keep in mind that people buying PlayStation 5s in China means that they're exposed to the entire PlayStation ecosystem, which means they might go into the PlayStation Store, look at the games available there, and check out some other stuff aside from Black Myth Wukong. So that might kind of ripple into other areas of PlayStation and PlayStation hardware and software sales that might greatly boost revenue for a platform that's been doing pretty well for itself. Though Daniel did emphasize that because a lot of the PS5 consoles sold in China are imported models from Japan and Hong Kong, it's going to be hard to keep track of exactly how many units were sold in China, because obviously like Japan models that are sold are going to be potentially counted as units sold in Japan, and you know, it's just the data of that might get a little murky. It's only in more recent months that PlayStation 5 has licensed national SKUs that have managed to gradually absorb a considerable piece of the pie that was traditionally taken by import models. So you've got a mix of models that are imported and others that are national. And so data might be a little murky, but it is just very clear that Black Myth Wukong is a sensation in China, and it's expanding not just console gaming in the form of PlayStation 5, but also PC gaming in a way that is explosive and unprecedented for a country that, you know, a lot of the gaming that they do, you know, tends to be mobile gaming and the like. It's not just PlayStation 5s that are selling out, but PC components, all of that stuff is becoming more and more difficult to find. All of that stuff is receiving a huge surge in sales. Daniel Ahmad noted this by saying not just PS5, but also GPUs, laptops, and other gaming hardware too, to the point that sellers online have even added "can play Black Myth Wukong" to item descriptions. Black Myth Wukong is being used as a selling point for hardware because the demand for the game and means to play that game has become so high. This is kind of, I think it's going to shift the landscape of how publishers perceive the Chinese market as a whole. It really opens eyes to the fact that there are a lot of people in China, and a lot of those people do game. It's just a matter of kind of making the right game for that audience. And again, a lot of the perception is that, you know, they mostly play mobile games, and that still holds true. Most of what they'll play is mobile games. Those games will generate the most sales because of the microtransactions and the fact that everyone basically has smartphones and the like. But it goes to highlight that those kinds of single-player AAA games that don't have microtransactions, that are just, you know, games you buy with one transaction and you get to keep forever, that stuff is also viable. Seeing like 8 million, and I'm sure it's still growing, like units being sold in China, that's gonna, I think, change a lot of perceptions surrounding, you know, how publishers want to appeal to the Chinese market, and realizing that there is a lot of untapped potential to sell more hardware and software. You know, I think PlayStation's definitely gonna plan to aim for more exclusive releases for you know, games that are made from Chinese studios who are trying to appeal to a lot of Chinese gamers, but also making those games appealing enough for people outside of China. Because Black Myth Wukong, I mean, it really did garner a whole lot of global attention because of just the fact that it looked really freaking good. And the final game turned out pretty good overall. Not perfect, but, you know, certainly good enough for a first entry into a new IP from a game studio that's only made like 3 games before that wasn't at this scale of AAA. And the fact that this game couldn't release on Xbox at this critical juncture where Black Myth Wukong has all of this attention and they're selling out of, you know, PlayStations and PC components, I think that's a huge detriment for Xbox to kind of tap into the Chinese market, because with all those other things sold out, Xbox could have received a boost in sales in China as well. We've got somebody here who kind of explained why the game hasn't come out on Xbox yet. Apparently, he spoke to a number of sources at Gamescom who relayed that there have just been technical issues with trying to get the game working on Xbox due to like memory leaks and situations like that, that has not allowed the game to receive kind of approval for it to be certified to release on the console. There's a translation here that kind of highlights everything. It's been indefinitely delayed until they managed to optimize the game for Series X and S. And this is, I think, a huge missed opportunity. I think if the game had simultaneously released on Xbox, with PS5s and PCs sold out, people would turn to Xbox as a means to play these games. They would have been exposed to the Xbox ecosystem, and it would have been a good way for Xbox to further tap into that market. But with Black Myth Wukong not being available for Xbox presently, it's just a lot of wasted sales where people are not going to be inclined to purchase that platform because it cannot play the game that they want to play. The one that's kind of going viral in China as far as AAA games are concerned. Xbox really could have used this boost in hardware sales, because there are reports out there discussing how the two platforms are faring. In the most recent quarter, it was reported that PlayStation 5 has outsold Xbox almost 5-1 this past quarter. And while I know that Xbox is not necessarily as focused on the hardware side of things, it doesn't change the fact that, hardware sales help and it creates good optics. And I know they're emphasizing Game Pass more than anything and it being available on as many platforms as possible. But Game Pass is also not growing at the intended rate. And so, I don't know, Xbox is just kind of lagging behind. And in the Chinese market, where it is a huge market that has to be tapped into, if on a corporate level they want to see revenue growth, this was a huge missed opportunity for them. And so Sony, without having to pay for exclusivity, has enjoyed console exclusivity for Black Myth Wukong, and now suddenly have a much greater presence in China with how well their platform is selling as a result of Black Myth Wukong being available on this console. So it's just crazy to see how much impact one game can have when it comes to driving sales for a specific platform or console, or just consoles in general, when a game is in high demand enough that it drives people to get whatever means necessary to be able to check out this thing that, everyone's talking about and that they cannot resist checking out, especially because of the iconography that the game represents. But I suppose only time will tell how all of this will change the landscape of how publishers treat the Chinese market. But if it yields more AAA games of this nature that are not just mobile games or microtransactions and infested titles, but high quality AAA titles where it really feels like, there's a strong identity and a strong sense of developers genuinely making something that they felt like they wanted to make, instead of just it being a corporate mandate that is just trying to chase after something instead of setting a trend and kind of doing something new. And yes, Black Myth Wukong does take inspiration from your Souls-likes and your God of Wars and your FromSoft stuff, but still has its own identity with the heavy influence from Journey to the West and what that brought to the table to this genre that, in a way that freshened the genre. If they can do that and bring new things to the table at high production value, it's a market that they can definitely further tap into, and one that could be a win-win situation for everyone. But we'll see what happens. In the meantime, though, let me know in the comments below what your thoughts and opinions are on Black Myth Wukong, its success, its performance in China, the way it's kind of having this ripple effect that's affecting sales for PC gaming hardware as well as PlayStation 5 in China, and the expansion of that, and how PlayStation's going to greatly benefit from this. Share your thoughts in the comments below, and to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.